Story 1. No one expects to have a child with special needs. Why would they? But it is a possibility, and it's life-altering, more than just having a child. Sometimes I don't know how I'll make it through each day. Sorry for the downer comment. Story 2. They might not love you. They might have opposite ideals to you. They might dislike all your interests. They are not turning into the adult you want them to be. There will always be elements that are not under your control that will influence them. All you can do is accept the type of person they will become. Story 3. Children aren't giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time. When they don't understand or know how to explain their issue or problem, their behavior is an ask for help. Story 4. You can choose whether to have kids. You cannot choose what kind of kid you have. I met someone whose parents wanted a girl. They got a girl who cut her hair short, disliked dresses, wrestled with the neighborhood boys, and was the biggest tomboy on the planet. They did not get the girly girl who wore dresses and perfumes and loved princesses. You do not get to choose the kind of kid you get. Story 5. It's constant emotional whiplash when they're little, especially during the toddler years, not only for them but for you as well. I have an almost 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. 1 minute, I'll be so frustrated with my oldest that I have to leave the room. Then, I'll come back 10 seconds later, and she'll say something funny or hug me, and I'll get a bigger surge of love and joy than I ever imagined possible. Story 6. Toddlers are incredibly curious and have very little sense of self-preservation. Sometimes, it is like having a tiny, hyperactive, drunk friend to look after. And that is often fun, but also exhausting. Story 7. How much will you worry about them all the time? I used to be a low-stress, low-anxiety person. Now, I worry about my kids all the time. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that I'll feel this way until I die. Story 8. When it's good, it's fantastic. We have 3 20-something kids who are all hilarious, kind, and considerate, have curiosity and varied interests, and actually like dropping by to talk to their folks. That is an amazing feeling. Story 9. Having a child sometimes brings out mental challenges you didn't realize you had. For my wife, it was anxiety stemming from things from her childhood. For me, it was anger issues. We are planning to go to therapy soon, for the sake of our 1-year-old. Story 10. Of all my friends with 2 kids, about half of them were separated when the second child was around 3. All of them knew about the divorce rates. None of them thought it would happen to them. Having a kid is scary because you don't know what you're doing, but once you figure it out, you feel like a pro and it's great. So, you have a second kid and expect it to be pretty much the same, except having a toddler and a baby is a whole different dynamic. The first year is intense, and you're constantly adjusting your expectations and don't have much time for the relationship, but you don't notice because you're too tired. Then in the second year, things calm down and you notice the cracks in the relationship, and people either repair the cracks or one of them moves out by the time the child is 3. Story 11. Parents would be happier if they had larger age gaps between their children. Having 2, 3 for kids back-to-back a year apart is not for everyone. Parenthood does not have to be survival mode. But if you have 2 babies under 2, it will always be survival mode. Story 12. Do not have children for selfish reasons. For someone to take care of you when you're older. To live vicariously through their youth, planning to force them to be mini versions of you. Because you want to pass on your bloodline. Because you want grandchildren someday. Because that is what everyone expects. To give your life meaning. To salvage a failing relationship. For the attention, glamour, and showers or parties. For government assistance. These are tiny humans, not items to forward your own selfish desires. Story 13. I was a teacher for a bit. A middle school teacher. Here is my insight into a pretty hard truth that parents seem to have a hard time with. Your kids, especially if biological, will be a lot like you and their other parent. This means all the things you like about yourself or your partner, they will most likely be. But this means everything you dislike about yourself or your partner, they will also be. If you as a parent haven't had time to self-reflect or manage your own flaws, you will have a hard time with those issues with your child. The students who had a hard time turning work in on time were the same parents who had difficulty making appointments. The parents who were messy, Their kids had equally messy cars that I saw during pickup. The students who were argumentative had honorary parents. The students who bullied others often had parents who bullied them. The students who were timid had parents who worried. It's part nature and part nurture. But children are the byproduct of their parents, for the good and the bad. The lucky thing is, you as a parent already know what that is like, and hopefully have figured out how to navigate it yourself. If you haven't, parenting will be rough. Story 14. How your romantic and social life will take a nosedive in the early years of having kids. We have always had that one friend who cannot go anywhere with the rest of the friends because their kids are too small, until you become that friend. Story 15. You never stop being a parent, even when they move out and have kids of their own. You have much less responsibility as they get older, but you will always be a parent. Story 16. The amount of toys you will accidentally step on in the middle of the night, and the constant struggle of trying to pee with a toddler banging on the bathroom door. Story 17. If you are not sure if you want kids, you do not want kids. Do not have children unless the thought of having them brings you so much happiness, excitement, and joy that there is absolutely no question in your mind. If you have one single doubt at all, do not even bother. Story 18. Toddlers aren't awful. It's really just the majority of us as adults who lack patience, understanding, and empathy. Children are a mirror to us. If they are described as rude, awful, and misbehaving, that's usually a reflection of the parenting. Between 10 to 15% of daycares are considered high quality in the United States. This means the majority of children are not even in good daycares. Daycare isn't ideal until the age of 3, but unfortunately, capitalism doesn't seem to care about that. Story 19. Don't get me wrong, I really want to be a dad soon too. But 18 years can be a lot of time. There will be ups and downs. They also can't fix a relationship. You should only have a child if you both are certain about each other and also can afford it. Before another person comments about the 18 years, I am well aware that you are not done with being a parent after they become legal adults. But I'd say, on average, the main work appears in those 18 years. After that, at least me and my 3 siblings became much more self-providing. We all started to work and moved out by the latest at 19. Of course, still, we seek guidance here and there, but overall, from that point on, you need your parents less for your everyday life than you used to before because you enter adulthood yourself. Story 20. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to parenting. Each child is an individual, and just because a particular approach works for one doesn't mean it will work for another. Story 21. If you don't have kids, and you're sick, you can take medication and go to sleep early. If you do have kids and you're sick, you still have to take care of them, especially when they are small. They will probably be less sick than you, plus they might sleep worse when they are sick, which means you do too. For birthing parents, there's the possibility of birth injury. Story 22. You have to actually parent your children and not just shove toys or electronics at them and then only parent them when you get a boost of motivation. A child. Story 23. Your children did not choose to be born. You chose to bring them here, so it is up to you to ensure their ride on this planet is a good one. People who act like their kids owe them are deluded. Also, teens are not adults. They may look like adults, but they are not. They are basically giant 3-year-olds. Stop acting like your teen is behaving like a poor adult when they are cranky. They are acting like cranky 3-year-olds with stronger bodies and more curse words, but still need as much loving support as you gave your kids when they were little and struggled. Story 24. Everyone is involved in your personal matters when you have children. They are constantly inquiring and advising from the start, and it never ends. It's overwhelming. I have 3, and I miss the times when people respected my privacy. Yes, I'm aware my toddler has fiery red, curly hair. You're the 4th person to mention it on our walk. Oh, now I must speak with the parents of my 9-year-old's friend because I caught them viewing inappropriate content. Great. My 10-year-old didn't complete her math homework because she had a significant sensory overload, and now I must email her teacher. And then I need to sign her out of school for therapy and inform the office staff about it. The cycle continues endlessly. Everyone seems to be involved in my business. Story 25. That we have children to experience our lives with them, not to be perfect mommies and raise perfect humans. It's an experience and a loving relationship, not a job. Story 26. The non-stop nature of it all. A woman can give birth and then it's instant work, no break, no downtime. Children don't go away. It's an endless gig. Be prepared to essentially give up your life for them. By the way, while I didn't know what a job it was going to be, I'm still glad I did it and would not have it any other way. Story 27. That you sign on for life. I used to hate when people would say, little kids, little problems. Big kids, big problems. How true that is. And also how frustrating, especially when they become adults. Story 28. On a more positive note, you have to dig deep into yourself and can find strength, resourcefulness, and motivation that you wouldn't have imagined. And when people say it gets better, it's really you get better. And that makes a world of difference. Any parents or parents to be out there, know better, do better, and your kids will be okay. You've got this. Story 29. Homo sapiens were never intended to be raised by a single or even two-parent family in an isolated suburban environment. It is deeply unnatural to be alone with a baby for long periods of time. Story 30. You don't own your children. You can and should want what's best for them, but at the end of the day, it's their life to live. It's unrealistic to expect your children to do what you want with their life. If you force them to go to a specific college to get a specific degree because you want them to have a specific job, then they will resent you. At the end of the day, you have to let them live their life. If you try to force them to do what you think is best, then all you're accomplishing is them eventually cutting you out of their life. Also, having children is not a guarantee you'll have someone to take care of you in your old age. Furthermore, you could be the perfect parent and your child could still end up being difficult. Story 31. You are not simply having children. You are creating a person and a life. This is a lifetime commitment. Not 18 years and then you're finished. It's for a lifetime, and if you do it well and live long, maybe even 2 generations. Who knows, with advancements in medicine, perhaps even 3 generations. I just lost my mom at 95 years old. And there is not a day when I don't reflexively think, oh, I'll ask mom. She knows how to do this. Story 32. I have an almost 2-year-old, so this feels very relevant. 1. Pregnancy can trigger autoimmune disease. It's almost never talked about. If you're postpartum and your body seems overly uncomfortable to live in, go to the doctor. It may not be normal. 2. Take stock of your village as you plan to have your child. Now imagine if only 50% actually show up, which is likely. Both my husband and I are only children with contentious or non-existent relationships with our parents. Friends who have involved grandparents and siblings to offer their children have a much easier time. That doesn't mean don't have them, but consider budgeting for babysitters and daycare so you don't die of exhaustion. 3. Having kids completely changes you, almost as if you're a new person. You will never not be a mom or dad again. It's okay to mourn it. It doesn't mean you don't love your children. It just means you miss who you used to be. Bonus. The baby industry is financially incentivized to make you as terrified of something happening to your child as possible. Keep that in mind at all times. Looking at you, Nanit. Our $30 monitor works fantastically. Putting a breathing cuff around your child's chest when they are otherwise healthy is a level of anxiety that only capitalism could make normal. Story 33. Sometimes things don't go how they're supposed to. I'm supposed to have a 4-month-old, but he was stillborn 10 days before our due date. I feel like I'm supposed to have a baby, so it feels so weird and horrible that I don't. Some advice: if you're pregnant and have not great feelings about your practice or the doctors you see, go elsewhere. I think my baby would have survived if I hadn't been with the practice I was. Story 34. When you have a baby, a piece of your heart is torn off and released into the wild of the world. It is just walking around, occasionally getting into trouble, and you cannot always control it or keep an eye on it as it moves further and further away from you. You worry about it constantly. Story 35. Ask yourself why you want them in the first place and be honest. So many people go through the motions without pausing to ask themselves if that is what they want, and it is too late and people end up hurt. Story 36. If you are self-absorbed, please do not bring children into this world. They require a lot of time and energy, and you will have no time to yourself. Do not tarnish a poor child's soul because you have no self-control. Story 37. The constant fear. Fear of them getting hurt, fear of messing up their life, fear of doing too much, fear of doing too little, fear that they will sense your fears. Now, that might sound quite negative, but it does not actually feel that negative. On the contrary, it shows you how much you are able to care about someone, how deeply you can feel. There is a saying, I do not remember it word for word, but the gist of it, the decision to have a child is momentous. You decide to forever have a piece of your heart walking around outside of your body. That description sounds about right. Story 38. There is considerable chance they will break a marriage instead of reinforcing it, as is the traditional belief. More accurately, the way the parents deal with the biggest change in their life might have that outcome.